The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers at exactly 11:47 p.m., clattering against the concrete floor of my garage like a gunshot in the silence. I'd been under the hood of my '98 Ford pickup for 3 hours, trying to fix a transmission that had more problems than my marriage, which, considering recent developments, was saying something. My name is Jack Sullivan, and I run Sullivan's Auto Repair on the east side of Millbrook, a town that peaked sometime around 1987 and has been sliding downhill ever since. Strip malls, empty storefronts, and the kind of people who think Olive Garden is fine dining. Perfect place to disappear, which apparently my wife had been doing for months. The garage door was cracked open just enough to let in the October air, crisp with the promise of another brutal Midwest winter. Through that gap, I could hear voices from our kitchen window, my wife Jennifer's sharp tone cutting through the night like a blade. "You don't understand anything," Jennifer was saying to our 17-year-old daughter Emma. "Your father is..." "What?" "A loser." Emma's voice dripped with teenage venom. "Mom, if Dad was half the man Travis is, maybe you wouldn't need to sneak around like some desperate housewife." Travis. The name hit me like a sucker punch to the gut. I wiped my hands on an old rag, moving closer to the window. The smart thing would have been to walk away, go inside, pretend I hadn't heard anything. But curiosity has always been my weakness, right alongside trusting people who don't deserve it. "Emma, that's enough," Jennifer snapped, but there was guilt in her voice. Guilt I'd been too stupid to recognize before tonight. "Whatever, you should see the texts you send him. Make me scream like Jack never could." "Really, Mom? Really?" The rag fell from my hands. 22 years of marriage, and my own daughter was giving me the play-by-play of my wife's affair like she was reading the sports scores. "How do you know about..." Jennifer started. "Your phone was on the counter, face up. Travis sent you a picture of himself in Dad's old boxing robe, the one from his amateur days. Pretty sure Dad doesn't know his wife's boyfriend is wearing his clothes. Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories." I leaned against the workbench, feeling like someone had just rewired my entire electrical system. Jennifer and Travis. Travis from her PR agency. The guy with the expensive suits and the kind of smile that made me want to check my wallet. The guy who'd shaken my hand at the company Christmas party and complimented my blue-collar authenticity. "Emma, you can't tell your father about this," Jennifer said, and I could hear the desperation creeping in. "It's complicated. Adult relationships are... gross?" "Yeah, I figured that out when I saw him grab your butt at my birthday party. Dad was right there, Mom. Right there, and you let him." I remembered that moment. Travis's hand on Jennifer's lower back. Lingering too long. I'd chalked it up to friendly office behavior, maybe too much wine. Apparently I'd been giving them both way too much credit. The kitchen window slammed shut, cutting off their conversation. I stood there in the darkness of my garage, surrounded by the tools of my trade, feeling like the biggest fool in Millbrook, which, considering the competition, was quite an accomplishment. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. "Working late again. Don't wait up." Working late, right. I checked the timestamp on her message, 11:52 p.m. Then I walked to the front of the garage and peered through the grimy window that faced our driveway. Jennifer's silver BMW was gone. Had been gone for hours, probably. I pulled out my phone and opened the Find My iPhone app. Jennifer's location showed the Comfort Inn on Route 9, about 15 minutes from our house. The same motel where we'd taken Emma when she was 8 and our air conditioning had broken during a heat wave. Family memories, now tainted with the image of my wife tangled up with her coworker. The smart move would have been to confront her directly. Sit down like adults, hash it out, maybe try counseling. But Jennifer had always been 3 steps ahead of me in every argument we'd ever had. She'd twist it around, make it my fault somehow. Make me the villain for snooping, for not trusting her, for being the kind of husband who drove his wife into another man's arms. No. This time, I was going to play it different. I grabbed my keys and climbed into my pickup. The engine turned over with a reluctant growl, and I pulled out of the driveway with my headlights off until I reached the street. 15 minutes later, I was parked across from the Comfort Inn, watching the second-floor windows like some kind of discount private investigator. Room 237 had the lights on. Through the thin curtains, I could make out 2 silhouettes. One tall and lean, Travis, one shorter, with the distinctive outline of Jennifer's shoulder-length hair. They were standing close together, and as I watched, Jennifer's silhouette moved closer to Travis's until they merged into one shadow. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, engine off, watching my marriage dissolve in real time. Then the lights went out, and I was left staring at a dark window that might as well have been a gravestone. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and stop signs. I parked in the garage and sat there for a while, trying to process what I just witnessed. Jennifer would be home in a few hours, probably around 2 a.m., smelling like hotel soap and making up some story about deadline pressures and client emergencies. But first, I had work to do. I walked back to the Comfort Inn, this time on foot, keeping to the shadows. Travis's car was parked in the lot, a cherry red Mustang convertible that probably cost more than I made in 6 months, the kind of car that screamed, "Look at me," to anyone within a 5-mile radius. I pulled out my pocket knife and approached the Mustang. The tires were expensive, probably cost him $300 each. It seemed like a shame to waste good rubber, but sometimes you have to make sacrifices for the greater good. The first tire went down with a satisfying hiss. Then the second. By the time I finished with all 4, the Mustang was sitting on its rims like a deflated birthday balloon. I pulled out a piece of paper from my wallet, an old receipt, and wrote on the back, "Hope you come as fast as you drive." I tucked it under the windshield wiper and walked home, feeling better than I had in months. Jennifer came home at 2:17 a.m. I pretended to be asleep, listening to her creep around the bedroom, whispering into her phone, probably calling Travis, wondering why he wasn't answering. Maybe he was busy dealing with his transportation issues. The next morning, Jennifer was unusually quiet over coffee. She kept checking her phone, frowning at the screen. "Everything okay?" I asked, buttering my toast with deliberate casualness. "Fine, just work stuff." She didn't look up from her phone. "Travis is having car trouble." "That's too bad. Maybe he should invest in something more reliable. Foreign cars are nice, but they break down a lot." Jennifer's head snapped up. "It's American, a Mustang." "Right. Well, American cars have their problems too, especially the flashy ones. Tend to attract the wrong kind of attention?" She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. But she couldn't prove anything, and we both knew it. "I have to go," she said, grabbing her purse. "Big presentation today." "Good luck with that. Hope everything works out the way you want it to." After she left, I poured myself another cup of coffee and checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. The woman had more security cameras than a casino and the social awareness of a surveillance drone. I called her back. "Jack! Oh, thank goodness. I have something you need to see. Can you come over?" Mrs. Patterson's living room looked like mission control for a small-scale intelligence operation. She had monitors showing feeds from 6 different cameras, all pointed at various angles of our street. "I was reviewing last night's footage," she said, pulling up a video on her laptop. "Look at this." The screen showed a grainy black-and-white image of me walking down the street toward the Comfort Inn. The timestamp read 12:47 a.m. "That's you, isn't it, Jack?" I nodded. No point in lying. And then, about an hour later, she clicked to another video. This one showed me walking back, taking my time, hands in my pockets like I didn't have a care in the world. "Mrs. Patterson, I appreciate your concern, but—" "Oh, I'm not concerned, dear. I'm impressed." She grinned, and for the first time I noticed she had the smile of a predator. "That Travis fellow has been sniffing around your wife for months. I've seen him drop her off after their work meetings. Always wondered when you'd figure it out." My stomach dropped. "You knew?" "Honey, everyone knows. Jennifer's not as subtle as she thinks she is. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Before I could answer, her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and smiled. "It's Jennifer. Should I tell her about our little chat?" I shook my head quickly. "No. Please." Mrs. Patterson answered the phone with saccharine sweetness. "Hello, Jennifer. Yes, I saw the footage. Your husband was out for a walk last night. Very late, very purposeful." She paused, listening. "Oh, I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. Jack's always been such a reasonable man." She hung up and turned to me. "You've got about 10 minutes before she gets home. Might want to have your story ready." I stood up to leave, but Mrs. Patterson grabbed my arm. "Jack, next time you decide to take a midnight stroll, maybe avoid the main street. I've got cameras that don't point toward the public areas, if you know what I mean." I looked at her for a long moment, understanding passing between us. Mrs. Patterson had been married 3 times. Apparently, she'd learned a few things along the way. "Thanks for the advice. Any time, dear. Us neighbors have to stick together." I walked home, mind racing. Jennifer's car was already in the driveway, and I could see her pacing in the kitchen through the window. Time to face the music. She was waiting for me at the kitchen table, arms crossed, phone in front of her like evidence in a trial. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" About where you were last night. About Travis's car. About whatever game you think you're playing. I sat down across from her, meeting her eyes for the first time in months, really looking at her. When had she started wearing so much makeup? When had her smiles become so calculated? I went for a walk. Couldn't sleep. As for Travis's car, I wouldn't know anything about that. Maybe he parked in the wrong neighborhood. Jack, I know you... Do you? I leaned back in my chair. Because I'm starting to think I don't know you at all. The accusation hung in the air between us. Jennifer's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, guilt, anger, and finally, cold calculation. I don't know what you think you know, she said carefully, but you're walking a dangerous line here. Am I? Seems to me I'm just a guy who went for a walk and came home to find his wife acting paranoid about some other man's car trouble. Makes a person wonder. Jennifer stood up abruptly. I have to get to work. We'll finish this conversation tonight. Looking forward to it. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, thinking. Jennifer was scared. Good. But she was also smart, and scared smart people were dangerous. She'd be planning her next move, probably calling Travis right now, trying to figure out how much I actually knew. The thing was, I was just getting started. The next few days passed in a weird kind of domestic Cold War. Jennifer and I circled each other like boxers in the early rounds, neither wanting to throw the first real punch. She worked late every night, came home smelling like expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine, and made small talk about weather and grocery lists like we were roommates instead of spouses. Emma, meanwhile, had apparently decided that her parents' marital problems were prime content for her social media empire. I caught her filming TikTok videos in the living room, making jokes about boomer relationship drama, and when your parents think they're being subtle. The comments were brutal. Apparently half her school knew about Jennifer and Travis before I did. Friday evening, I was closing up the shop when my old friend Danny Kowalski showed up. Danny owned Kowalski's gym downtown, a no-frills boxing gym that smelled like sweat and dreams. We'd grown up together, back when Millbrook still had a downtown worth mentioning. Heard you've been having some domestic troubles, Danny said, leaning against my workbench like he owned the place. News travels fast in this town. Faster when your neighbor has more cameras than the FBI and a bigger mouth than a megaphone. Danny pulled out 2 bottles of beer from a paper bag. Mrs. Patterson stopped by the gym today, said you might need someone to talk to. I accepted the beer and took a long pull. What exactly did she tell you? That your wife's been playing house with some suit from her office, and you're about 2 steps away from doing something that'll land you in trouble. Danny studied my face. She also said you've got that look. What look? The one you used to get before fights, like you'd already won in your head and the other guy just didn't know it yet. Danny wasn't wrong. I'd been an amateur boxer in my 20s. Nothing special, but I'd won more fights than I'd lost. The secret wasn't being the strongest or the fastest. It was being patient, letting the other guy make mistakes while you waited for your opening. Jennifer's been careful, I said, but not careful enough. And Travis is exactly the kind of guy who thinks he's smarter than everyone else. What's your plan? Tomorrow night is Emma's school fundraiser. Big fancy event at the country club. Jennifer's been planning it for months, invited all her work friends, including Travis. Danny raised an eyebrow. You're going to make a scene? I'm going to make a statement. The Millbrook Country Club hadn't been updated since the Carter administration, but it still had the kind of old-money atmosphere that impressed people like Jennifer. Crystal chandeliers, dark wood paneling, and waiters who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my one good suit, and the kind of smile that made people nervous. Jennifer was holding court near the silent auction table, surrounded by her PR agency colleagues. Travis stood beside her, one hand resting possessively on the small of her back. My back. Emma was across the room with her friends, probably live-tweeting the whole event. She caught my eye and gave me a look that was equal parts curiosity and dread. Smart kid. She could sense the storm coming. I made my way through the crowd, shaking hands and making small talk. Principal Morrison asked about my business. Mrs. Chen from the PTA complimented my tie. Normal suburban dad stuff. Nothing to indicate that I was about to detonate a social bomb in the middle of their polite little gathering. Jack! Jennifer's voice had that forced brightness that meant she was either very happy or very nervous. Everyone, you remember my husband Jack? He owns Sullivan's Auto Repair? The group murmured polite hellos. Travis extended his hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Good to see you again, Jack. How's the car business? Can't complain. People keep making mistakes, and I keep fixing them. I shook his hand, holding it just a little too long. though some mistakes are harder to fix than others. Travis's smile flickered. I'm sure. Jennifer jumped in quickly. Travis was just telling us about the new campaign they're working on. Very exciting stuff. I bet. Travis seems like the kind of guy who's always working on something new, never satisfied with what he's got at home. The conversation died. Jennifer's face went pale, and Travis looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. Well, said Marcia from the PTA, clearly sensing the tension. I should check on the dessert table. The group scattered like roaches when the lights come on, leaving me alone with Jennifer and Travis. Perfect. Jack, Jennifer said through gritted teeth, can I talk to you privately? Actually, I was hoping to make a toast. I raised my voice, getting the attention of nearby tables. If I could have everyone's attention for just a moment. Jennifer grabbed my arm. Jack, don't. I gently removed her hand and stepped toward the center of the room. The conversations died down as people turned to look at me. Emma had her phone out, recording. Of course she did. I just wanted to say a few words about family, I began, my voice carrying easily across the room. About the people we trust, the people we build our lives with, and the people who surprise us when we least expect it. Jennifer was shaking her head frantically, but it was too late. I was committed now. My wife Jennifer and I have been married for 22 years. That's a long time to share your life with someone, long enough to think you know everything about them, long enough to get comfortable, maybe even complacent. I paused, letting the words sink in. The room was completely quiet now. But sometimes life has a way of waking you up. Sometimes you discover that the person sleeping next to you every night has been living a completely different life when you're not looking. Sometimes you find out that your family isn't exactly what you thought it was. Jennifer's face had gone from pale to red. Travis looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. So here's to family, I continued, raising my beer bottle. May some of us finally find one that's worth keeping. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, a few people started to clap. Not enthusiastic applause, but the kind of awkward social clapping that happens when people don't know how else to respond. I nodded to the crowd and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear Jennifer's voice, high and strained, trying to explain to her friends that I'd been under a lot of stress lately, that work had been difficult, that I didn't mean anything by it, but I'd meant every word, and everyone in that room knew it. Emma caught up with me in the parking lot. Dad, what the hell was that? That was me finally growing a backbone. You just humiliated Mom in front of everyone she works with. Your mom humiliated herself. I just made sure people noticed. Emma stared at me for a long moment. You know about Travis. It wasn't a question. I know a lot of things, Emma, including the fact that you've been selling our family drama to your followers for likes and comments. She had the decency to look ashamed. Dad, Save it. You made your choice when you decided our private business was public entertainment. Now you get to live with the consequences. I got in my truck and drove home, leaving Emma standing in the country club parking lot with her phone in her hand and nothing to say for once. The house was quiet when I got there. I poured myself a whiskey and sat in my recliner, waiting. Jennifer would be home soon, and she'd be furious. Good. Angry people made mistakes, and I was counting on Jennifer to make a big one. She didn't disappoint me. I heard her car in the driveway around midnight, the engine revving higher than usual. She was upset. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows, and her heels clicked across the hardwood floor like gunshots. Jack, where are you? Living room. She appeared in the doorway, still wearing her cocktail dress, makeup smeared from crying or yelling or both. What is wrong with you? She demanded. Do you have any idea what you just did? Enlighten me. You made me look like a fool in front of my colleagues, in front of my boss, in front of everyone I work with. Funny, I thought you'd been doing that all by yourself. She stepped closer, and I could smell Travis's cologne on her dress. You don't know anything, Jack. You think you're so smart, but you don't have a clue what's really going on. Then tell me. Explain to me how having an affair with your coworker is part of some master plan I'm too stupid to understand. Jennifer's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She hadn't expected me to be so direct. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're sleeping with Travis. You have been for months, and you thought I was too dumb to figure it out. The only thing I got wrong was thinking you had enough respect for our marriage to be subtle about it. Jennifer sank onto the couch, suddenly looking older than her 38 years. Jack, please, we need to talk about this rationally. Rationally, like adults? That's rich, coming from someone who's been sneaking around like a teenager. You don't understand the pressure I'm under at work, the expectations. Travis and I, we connect on a professional level. Is that what you call it when he wears my old boxing robe? Jennifer's face went white. How did you? Emma told me. Your own daughter knows more about your affair than your husband did. Think about that for a minute. Jennifer buried her face in her hands. This is such a mess. Yes, it is. But it's your mess, Jennifer. You made it, and now you get to figure out how to clean it up. I stood up and headed for the stairs. Where are you going? She called after me. To bed. Some of us have real work to do tomorrow. Jack, we need to figure this out. We need to talk about what happens next. I paused at the bottom of the stairs and turned back to look at her. She was still sitting on the couch in her expensive dress, mascara running down her cheeks, looking like a stranger. What happens next is up to you, Jennifer. But understand this. I'm done being the fool in this marriage. From now on, we play by different rules. I went upstairs and locked the bedroom door behind me. For the first time in months, I slept like a baby. Sunday morning brought the kind of silence that comes after a storm, when everyone's still assessing the damage. Jennifer had spent the night on the couch, and Emma had barricaded herself in her room, probably trying to figure out how to spin last night's drama for her social media audience. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone. The Millbrook community Facebook page was buzzing with speculation about my performance at the fundraiser. Some people were calling it a public breakdown, others were calling it long overdue. Mrs. Patterson had posted a cryptic comment about truth-telling that had generated 47 replies and counting. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Meet me at the old Sears in Eastgate Mall, 2 p.m. Come alone. I have information you need. I stared at the message for a long moment. In movies, mysterious text messages usually led to ambushes or elaborate traps. In real life, they probably led to the same thing. But curiosity had always been my weakness. And right now, information was the only currency I had. Eastgate Mall had been fading through a slow retail decline for the better part of a decade. The anchor stores had pulled out years ago, leaving behind a concrete shell filled with discount cell phone shops, questionable massage parlors, and stores that sold nothing but phone cases and energy drinks. The old Sears had been empty for 3 years, its metal security gates covered in graffiti and rust. I parked near the food court and walked toward the abandoned store, feeling like an idiot. If this was some kind of setup, I was walking right into it with my eyes wide open. A woman was waiting by the old Sears entrance, smoking a cigarette and checking her phone. She looked to be in her 40s, with bleached blonde hair and the kind of tired expression that came from too many disappointments. I recognized her as Linda Vasquez, the receptionist from Jennifer's PR agency. You came, she said, dropping her cigarette and crushing it under her heel. You texted. What's this about? Linda looked around nervously, then gestured for me to follow her toward a bench near the defunct fountain. The mall was mostly empty except for a few teenagers and some elderly mall walkers who apparently hadn't gotten the memo that this place was a ghost town. I've been working at Morrison & Associates for 6 years, Linda began. I see everything that goes through that office. Every email, every phone call, every expense report. And your wife is in way deeper trouble than just screwing around with Travis. Linda pulled out a manila folder from her oversized purse and handed it to me. Inside were photocopies of expense reports, bank statements, and what looked like internal company emails. Jennifer's been skimming from client accounts, Linda continued. Small amounts at first, but it's been getting bigger. She's also been padding expense reports, billing personal items to company accounts, and using company credit cards for her little romantic getaways. I flipped through the papers, trying to make sense of the numbers. It wasn't my area of expertise, but even I could see the discrepancies. Hotel charges that didn't match business trips, restaurant bills for two when Jennifer was supposedly working alone, cash advances that never got accounted for. Why are you showing me this? Linda lit another cigarette, her hands shaking slightly. Because Jennifer's been setting up her business partner to take the fall. Chloe Morrison founded that agency, built it from nothing. Jennifer's been systematically destroying her reputation while positioning herself to take over. Chloe Morrison. I'd met her a few times at company events. Mid-30s, sharp as a razor, with the kind of ambition that made Jennifer look lazy by comparison. She and Jennifer had started as friends, but I'd noticed the relationship cooling over the past year. How do you know all this? Because I've been helping Jennifer cover her tracks. Linda's voice was barely above a whisper. She promised me a promotion, a raise, said I'd be her right hand when she took over the company. But last week, I found out she's been documenting every time I helped her, building a case to make me the fall guy if anyone starts asking questions. I studied Linda's face. She looked genuinely scared, but that didn't mean she was telling the truth. What do you want from me? I want Jennifer to go down before she takes me with her. And I want Chloe to know what's been happening before it's too late. Why not go to Chloe directly? Linda laughed bitterly. Jennifer's been poisoning that well for months. Chloe thinks I'm incompetent, unreliable. She'd never believe me, but she might believe you. I closed the folder and handed it back to her. Keep it. Make copies. Send them to the police, the IRS, whoever handles this kind of thing. I can't. Jennifer has too much on me. I helped her do this stuff. I'd go down too. Then why should I get involved? Linda stubbed out her cigarette and looked at me with something that might have been pity. Because your wife isn't just cheating on you, Jack. She's planning to destroy everyone who gets in her way, and that includes you. Those financial records, some of them are in your name, joint accounts, shared credit cards. When this all comes out, you're going to be collateral damage. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean, Jennifer's been very careful to make sure that if she goes down, she doesn't go down alone. She's got documentation showing that you had access to all the accounts she's been skimming from. Your signatures on forms you probably never saw. Your name on expense reports for trips you never took. I stared at Linda for a long moment, processing what she'd just told me. Jennifer wasn't just having an affair. She was setting me up to take the fall for embezzlement. Why should I trust you? Because right now, I'm the only person in this mess who's telling you the truth. Linda stood up and shouldered her purse. Think about it, Jack. Your wife's been planning this for months, maybe years. The affair with Travis, that's just the cherry on top. The real prize is taking over the agency and making sure anyone who could expose her is either discredited or in prison. She walked away, leaving me sitting alone next to a broken fountain in a fading mall, holding evidence that my wife was a criminal and I was her scapegoat. I drove home in a daze, Linda's words echoing in my head. Joint accounts, shared credit cards, my name on documents I'd never seen. Jennifer had always handled our finances, said she was better with numbers. I'd been happy to let her take care of it, trusting her to manage our money while I focused on keeping the business running. Apparently, trust was just another word for stupidity. The house was empty when I got there. Jennifer's car was gone, and Emma was at her friend's house for the night. I went to Jennifer's home office and started going through her files, looking for anything that might confirm what Linda had told me. It didn't take long to find it. Bank statements showing transfers I'd never authorized, credit card bills for charges I'd never made, and at the bottom of a filing cabinet, a folder labeled Insurance that contained photocopies of documents with my forged signature. My hands were shaking as I flipped through the papers. Jennifer had been thorough. If anyone investigated the agency's finances, it would look like I'd been helping her steal from clients. The perfect setup with the perfect fall guy, a blue-collar husband who was too trusting and too stupid to know what his wife was really doing. I was still sitting at Jennifer's desk when she came home around 10 p.m. She found me there, surrounded by evidence of her betrayal, and for a moment neither of us said anything. You went through my files, she said finally. Your files. These are documents with my name on them, my forged signature. Jennifer stepped into the office and closed the door behind her. Jack, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You've been stealing from your clients and setting me up to take the blame. The affair with Travis is just a sideshow. Jennifer sat down in the chair across from her desk, suddenly looking very tired. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? The agency was failing. Chloe made some bad investments, lost some major clients. We were going to go under within a year. So you decided to steal? I decided to save my career, our future. Do you think your little garage is going to support us when we're 60? Do you think Emma's college fund is going to pay for itself? I stared at my wife, this woman I'd lived with for 22 years, and realized I didn't know her at all. And Travis? Jennifer's face hardened. Travis is ambitious. He understands what it takes to succeed in business. He's been helping me position myself to take over when Chloe goes down. Goes down? The embezzlement investigation will show that Chloe was skimming from client accounts. Oh, she'll be ruined, probably face criminal charges. I'll step in to save the agency, keep the clients happy, rebuild the reputation. And I'll be in prison. Jennifer shook her head. It won't come to that. You'll be a victim, the trusting husband who got manipulated by his business partner wife. You might face some civil liability, but nothing criminal. How generous of you. Jack, please, try to see the bigger picture. When this is all over, I'll own the agency. We'll be set for life. Emma will have everything she needs for college. We can move out of this fading town, start fresh somewhere else. I stood up slowly, gathering the papers from her desk. You're insane if you think I'm going to go along with this. You don't have a choice. It's already in motion. The investigation will start within the next few weeks. Your name is already on the documents. You can either work with me or you can go down with everyone else. I walked to the door, then turned back to look at her. You know what the funny thing is? I might have forgiven the affair. People make mistakes. Marriages hit rough patches. But this? Setting me up to take the fall for your crimes? That's not a mistake, Jennifer. That's who you really are. I left her sitting in her office and went upstairs to pack a bag. I couldn't stay in the house. Not with her, not knowing what I knew. I needed time to think, to plan my next move. But as I threw clothes into a duffel bag, one thing was crystal clear. Jennifer had started a war, and she'd made the mistake of thinking I was too weak to fight back. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. I spent the night at Danny's place, sleeping on a couch that smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams. Danny didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and let me work through my anger on his heavy bag until my knuckles were raw and my shoulders ached. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the offices of Morrison & Associates. The building was one of those glass and steel monuments to suburban success, all clean lines and expensive landscaping. Jennifer's BMW was in the parking lot, along with Travis's newly repaired Mustang. I found Chloe Morrison in her corner office, reviewing what looked like financial reports. She was younger than Jennifer, maybe 35, with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun and the kind of intense focus that made successful people successful. Mr. Sullivan, she said, looking up from her computer, this is unexpected. Is everything all right? I closed the door behind me and took a seat across from her desk. That depends on how you define all right. We need to talk about Jennifer. Chloe's expression didn't change, but I caught a flicker of something, concern, maybe, or recognition. I'm not sure what you mean. I pulled out photocopies of the documents Linda had shown me, along with the files I'd found in Jennifer's home office. I mean that my wife has been embezzling from your clients and planning to frame you for it. For a long moment, Chloe just stared at the papers. Then she picked them up and started reading, her face growing paler with each page. Where did you get these? Does it matter? The question is, what are you going to do about it? Chloe set the papers down and looked at me with new interest. Mr. Sullivan, if these documents are authentic, they represent evidence of serious crimes. Why bring them to me instead of the police? Because Jennifer's been very careful to make it look like you're the one stealing. She's been building a case against you for months, positioning herself to take over the agency when you go down. Going to the police without more evidence would just speed up her timeline. And you believe I'm innocent? I believe you're not stupid enough to embezzle money using your own name and leave a paper trail a blind accountant could follow. This setup has Jennifer's fingerprints all over it. Chloe leaned back in her chair, studying me. What do you want from me? I want to stop her before she destroys both of us, but I need your help. What kind of help? Before I could answer, there was a knock on Chloe's door. Jennifer's voice called out, Chloe, do you have a minute? Chloe looked at me, then at the papers on her desk. Hide in the conference room, she whispered, pointing to a door that connected her office to a small meeting room. Leave the door cracked so you can hear. I slipped into the conference room just as Jennifer entered Chloe's office. Through the gap in the door, I could see Jennifer's reflection in the window. She looked composed, professional, completely in control. I wanted to talk to you about the Morrison Industries account, Jennifer said, settling into the chair I just vacated. I've been reviewing their files, and I think we have a problem. What kind of problem? Discrepancies in the billing. Charges that don't match our records. It looks like someone's been padding the invoices. I watched Chloe's face in the reflection. She was good. No emotion, no tells, just professional interest. Do you have any idea who might be responsible? Well, that's the difficult part. The irregularities go back about 2 years, which means it has to be someone with high-level access to the accounts. Jennifer paused, letting the implications sink in. Chloe, I hate to even suggest this, but the access logs show that most of these discrepancies occurred when you were the primary account manager. I see. I'm not accusing you of anything. There could be a perfectly innocent explanation. Maybe someone else had access to your login, or there was a computer glitch, or... Jennifer, Chloe interrupted. Are you suggesting that I've been embezzling from our clients? Of course not. I'm just saying that we need to investigate this thoroughly before it becomes a bigger problem. Maybe we should bring in an outside auditor, someone independent who can review all the accounts and clear this up. Through the window's reflection, I could see Chloe gathering the papers I'd brought her. That's an interesting suggestion. Tell me, would this outside auditor also review the expense accounts, the company credit card statements, all financial records? Jennifer's smile flickered. Well, yes, I suppose they'd need access to everything to do a thorough job. Good, because I think you're right. We do need an independent investigation. Chloe stood up and walked around her desk. In fact, I've already started gathering some documents that might be relevant. She handed Jennifer the photocopies I'd brought, watching her face carefully. Jennifer's composure cracked like ice on a warm day. Where did you get these? Does it matter? The question is, how do you explain expense reports for hotels you never stayed at, restaurant bills for client dinners that never happened, and cash advances that were never accounted for? Jennifer's hands were shaking as she flipped through the papers. These are taken out of context. I can explain every one of these charges. I'm sure you can. Just like you can explain why your husband's signature appears on documents he never signed, or why client payments were deposited into accounts he had access to. Jennifer looked up sharply. Jack doesn't know anything about the business side of things. He's completely uninvolved in agency finances. Exactly, which makes him the perfect patsy. Chloe sat back down, her voice calm and controlled. Here's what I think happened, Jennifer. You've been skimming from client accounts for months, maybe years. You've been careful to make it look like I was responsible, building a case to take over the agency when I got arrested. And you've been setting up your husband to take the fall if anyone looked too closely at the financial records. That's ridiculous. Jack is my husband. Why would I? Because he's expendable. Because a blue-collar husband with access to joint accounts makes a perfect scapegoat. Because you never intended for this marriage to last anyway. Jennifer stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do. Because I'm not the only one who's seen these documents. Jennifer froze. What do you mean? I mean, your husband is in the next room, listening to every word of this conversation. Jennifer spun toward the conference room door, her face white with rage and fear. I stepped out of hiding, meeting her eyes for the first time since she'd entered the office. Hello, Jennifer. Having a good morning? You bastard. You set me up. Funny. That's exactly what I was going to say to you. Jennifer looked back and forth between Chloe and me, clearly trying to calculate her options. This is entrapment. Whatever you think you heard, it won't hold up. In court? Chloe interrupted. You're right, but we're not in court. We're in my office, in my company, discussing the future of my business. And I've decided that future doesn't include you. You can't fire me. I have a contract, which includes a morals clause and a clause about criminal activity. I think embezzlement qualifies on both counts. Jennifer's composure finally shattered completely. You have no idea what you're doing. I built this agency as much as you did. I brought in half our clients. You stole from our clients. You committed fraud. You tried to frame me for crimes you committed. Chloe's voice was ice cold now. Pack your office. Security will escort you out in 1 hour. Jennifer turned to me, her eyes blazing with fury. And you? You think you're so clever, don't you? You think you've won something? I think I've stopped you from destroying innocent people. That's enough for now. This isn't over, Jack. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Actually, I'm starting to get a pretty good picture. Jennifer stormed out of the office, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Chloe and I sat in silence for a moment, listening to her heels clicking down the hallway. Well, Chloe said finally, that was illuminating. What happens now? Now I call my lawyer and my accountant. We'll need to do a full audit, figure out exactly how much she stole and from which accounts. We'll also need to document everything for the police. The police? Jennifer committed serious crimes, Mr. Sullivan. I can't just let her walk away. I nodded, understanding. What about the stuff with my name on it? We'll sort that out. You were clearly a victim here, not a co-conspirator. My lawyer will make sure the authorities understand that. I stood up to leave, then turned back. Chloe, thank you. For listening, for believing me. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Jennifer's very good at manipulation. Yeah, she is. I lived with her for 22 years and never saw it coming. Don't blame yourself. People like Jennifer are experts at showing us what we want to see. I left the office feeling like I'd won a battle, but knowing the war was far from over. Jennifer was smart, ruthless, and now she was cornered. Cornered animals were dangerous, and I had no doubt she was already planning her next move. I was right to be worried. When I got home that afternoon, the house had been cleaned out. Jennifer had taken everything, furniture, electronics, even the coffee maker. She'd left behind a note on the kitchen counter. You want to play games, Jack? Game on. My phone rang. It was Emma. Dad, Mom picked me up from school early. She says we're going to stay with Aunt Carol for a while. Emma, listen to me carefully. Your mother is in serious trouble. She's committed crimes, and she's trying to run away before the police catch up with her. Dad, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Don't let her take you anywhere else. Stay at Carol's and call me if she tries to leave town with you. I don't understand what's happening. I know, sweetheart, but you need to trust me on this. Your mother isn't who we thought she was." The line went quiet for a long moment. Then Emma said, "Dad, I'm sorry. About the TikTok stuff, about telling her about Travis's texts. I didn't know she was using me to hurt you." "I know, Em. We'll figure this out, okay? Just stay safe." After I hung up, I walked through my empty house, taking inventory of what Jennifer had taken and what she'd left behind. She'd been thorough. Anything of value was gone. But she'd made one mistake. She'd left behind her home computer. I spent the next 3 hours going through Jennifer's hard drive, looking for anything that might help me understand the full scope of what she'd been doing. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Jennifer hadn't just been embezzling from clients. She'd been running a sophisticated fraud operation, using the agency as a front to launder money from multiple sources. She had fake invoices, shell companies, and a network of accomplices that stretched far beyond Travis and Linda. And at the center of it all was a plan to disappear with several million in stolen funds, leaving behind a trail of evidence that pointed to me as the mastermind. I printed everything and called Chloe. "We have a bigger problem than we thought," I told her. "Jennifer's not just a thief. She's been running a criminal enterprise, and she's planning to pin the whole thing on me." "How much bigger are we talking about?" "Try several million bigger, and she's got accomplices we don't know about." Chloe was quiet for a long moment. "Jack, I think you need to call the FBI." She was right. This had gone way beyond small-town embezzlement. This was organized crime, and I was in way over my head. But before I called the FBI, I had one more stop to make. Travis's apartment was in one of those new luxury complexes on the outskirts of town, all granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. I found his unit on the 3rd floor and knocked on the door. He answered wearing a silk bathrobe and holding a glass of wine. Behind him, I could hear soft jazz music and smell expensive candles. "Jack, what are you doing here? We need to talk." "I don't think that's a good idea." I pushed past him into the apartment. It was exactly what I'd expected. Modern furniture, abstract art, and the kind of sterile perfection that screamed, "I have money but no soul." "Nice place. Jennifer's been helping you decorate?" Travis closed the door and turned to face me. "Look, Jack, I know this is awkward, but..." "Awkward? Is that what you call sleeping with another man's wife while helping her embezzle millions from her clients?" Travis's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. You've been Jennifer's partner in more ways than one. The question is, do you know she's planning to throw you under the bus along with everyone else?" "That's not true. Jennifer and I are..." "What? In love? Partners?" "Travis, you're a useful idiot. Nothing more. When the FBI starts investigating this mess, your name is going to be all over the evidence, right next to mine." Travis set down his wine glass with shaking hands. "The FBI? Oh, you didn't know. Jennifer's operation is a lot bigger than skimming expense accounts. She's been laundering money, running shell companies, committing federal crimes, and when it all comes crashing down, she'll be long gone with the money while you and I take the fall." I pulled out some of the documents I'd found on Jennifer's computer and showed them to Travis. His face went from pale to green as he read through them. "I didn't know about any of this," he whispered. "She told me it was just creative accounting, moving money around to avoid taxes." "Creative accounting. Right." I gathered up the papers. "Here's the thing, Travis. I'm going to the FBI tomorrow morning. I'm going to tell them everything I know about Jennifer's operation. Now, you can either be part of the solution or part of the problem." "What do you want from me?" "I want you to tell me everything you know about Jennifer's plans, where she's going, who she's working with, how much money she's stolen. And I want you to cooperate with the investigation." Travis sank onto his expensive couch, looking like a man who just realized he'd been swimming with sharks. "She said we were going to disappear together. Start over somewhere warm, somewhere without extradition treaties." "When?" "Tomorrow night. She's got everything arranged. New identities, offshore accounts, a private plane." I felt a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. "Where?" "I don't know. She said it was better if I didn't know the details until the last minute." "Travis, listen to me very carefully. Jennifer is not taking you with her. You're a loose end, and Jennifer doesn't leave loose ends." Travis looked up at me with something that might have been hope. "What should I do?" "You should call the FBI and tell them everything you just told me. And you should do it tonight, before Jennifer realizes you're having second thoughts." I left Travis sitting in his expensive apartment, staring at his expensive furniture, probably wondering how he'd gotten himself into such an expensive mess. But I wasn't done yet. Jennifer thought she was 3 steps ahead of everyone, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated the fool she'd been married to for 22 years. The next morning, I was sitting in the FBI field office in Springfield, telling my story to Special Agent Sarah Martinez, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who took notes like she was preparing for war. Travis had indeed called the night before, and his information had corroborated everything I'd brought them. "Mr. Sullivan," Agent Martinez said, closing her notebook, "we're going to need your help with something." "Whatever you need. Your wife is planning to leave the country tonight. We know about the private airfield, the plane, even the fake passports, but we need to catch her with the money in the act of fleeing. Otherwise, her lawyers will claim she was just taking a vacation." "What do you want me to do?" "We want you to call her. Tell her you know about her plans, that you want to make a deal. Offer to keep quiet in exchange for a cut of the money." I stared at her. "You want me to pretend to be as corrupt as she is?" "We want you to give her enough rope to hang herself. If she thinks you're willing to be bought, she might reveal details about the operation we don't have yet." An hour later, I was back home, sitting at my kitchen table with FBI recording equipment and Agent Martinez listening in from a van parked down the street. My hands were shaking as I dialed Jennifer's number. She answered on the second ring. "Jack, how did you get this number?" "Hello to you too, sweetheart. We need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings." "Your lawyer? That's funny. I was thinking more along the lines of federal prosecutors." The line went quiet for a long moment. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. Shell companies, money laundering, offshore accounts. Ring any bells?" "Jack, you're in way over your head. You should walk away from this before you get hurt." "Actually, I think I'm in exactly the right depth. Deep enough to sink you, but shallow enough to swim to safety." "What do you want?" "I want what's mine. 22 years of marriage, I figure I'm entitled to half of everything, including the money you've been stealing." Jennifer laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think this is about money? Isn't it always? You have no idea what you're dealing with. The people I work with don't negotiate, Jack. They eliminate problems." "Is that a threat?" "It's a reality check. Walk away. Take Emma and disappear for a while. Let this all blow over." "Can't do that, Jennifer. See, I've already talked to the FBI, told them everything I know about your operation. So walking away isn't really an option anymore." The silence that followed was so long I thought she might have hung up. Then her voice came back, colder than I'd ever heard it. "You just signed your own sentence, Jack." "Maybe, but I signed yours first." The line went silent. Agent Martinez's voice crackled through my earpiece. "We got what we needed. She's at the Millbrook Motor Lodge, room 127. We're moving in now." But I wasn't done yet. I had one more stop to make. The Millbrook High School was hosting its monthly school board meeting that evening, and I knew Jennifer's friend Chloe would be there. The real Chloe, not the business partner, but Chloe Brennan, the PTA president who'd been Jennifer's closest friend for 15 years. I arrived just as the meeting was ending, catching Chloe in the parking lot as she headed to her car. "Chloe, we need to talk." She turned, surprised. "Jack? What are you doing here?" "Cleaning up some unfinished business. Did you know about Jennifer and Travis?" Chloe's face flushed. "I don't know what you mean." "Sure you do. You've known about the affair for months. You've been covering for her, making excuses, helping her lie to me." "Jack, that's not—" "It's exactly what happened. And you know what the funny part is? Jennifer's been playing you just like she played me. While you were helping her cheat on her husband, she was planning to destroy her business partner and steal millions from her clients." Chloe's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "That's impossible. Jennifer's been arrested by the FBI. Tonight. For money laundering, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit fraud." I pulled out my phone and showed her the news alert that had just popped up. "Your best friend is a criminal, Chloe, and you've been her accomplice." Chloe stared at the phone screen, her face going pale in the parking lot lights. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about any financial crimes." "But you knew about the affair? You knew she was lying to me, humiliating me, and you helped her do it." "Jack, please. I was just trying to be a good friend. To her. What about being a decent human being to me?" Other parents were starting to notice our conversation, slowing down as they walked to their cars, clearly sensing drama. "Perfect." I raised my voice just enough to carry. 22 years of marriage, Chloe. 22 years, and my wife's best friend knew she was cheating and said nothing. Knew she was planning to frame me for crimes I didn't commit and said nothing. "Jack, please, not here." "Why not here? This is where it all started, isn't it? PTA meetings, school fundraisers, all those cozy little conversations where you and Jennifer laughed about what a fool I was." A crowd was gathering now. Parents, teachers, even some school board members who hadn't left yet. Chloe looked around desperately, realizing she was trapped. "You want to know the truth?" I continued, addressing the growing audience. "My wife has been arrested by the FBI for stealing millions from her clients. She was planning to flee the country tonight with her lover, leaving me to take the blame for her crimes. And her best friend here knew about it and said nothing." The crowd murmured, shock and excitement rippling through them. Chloe looked like she wanted to disappear into the asphalt. "Jack, stop, please." "Stop? Why should I stop? You didn't stop Jennifer when she was destroying my life. You didn't stop her when she was stealing from innocent people. You didn't stop her when she was setting me up to go to prison for her crimes." Principal Morrison pushed through the crowd. "Mr. Sullivan, perhaps we should take this conversation somewhere more private." "No, no more private conversations, no more secrets, no more lies." I turned back to Chloe. "You want privacy? You should have thought of that before you decided to help my wife commit adultery and fraud." Chloe was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Jack. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." "How far did you mean for it to go? Just far enough to destroy my marriage? Just far enough to humiliate me in front of the entire town?" I thought you'd be happier without her. She was always complaining about you, saying you didn't understand her ambitions, that you were holding her back. So you decided to help her find someone who wouldn't hold her back. I thought if she got it out of her system, maybe she'd realize what she had with you." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You thought wrong, Chloe. Jennifer didn't want to fix our marriage. She wanted to destroy it, steal everything we'd built together, and leave me holding the bag for her crimes." The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. This was better than reality TV. "And you know what the really pathetic part is?" I continued. "I might have forgiven her for the affair. People make mistakes, marriages go through rough patches. But the fraud, the embezzlement, setting me up to take the fall for crimes she committed? That's not a mistake, Chloe. That's who Jennifer really is." My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Martinez. "Suspect in custody. Clean arrest. Thank you for your help." I showed the text to Chloe. "It's over. Jennifer's in federal custody. Travis is cooperating with the investigation, and everyone's going to know the truth about what really happened." Chloe wiped her eyes, smearing her makeup even more. "What happens now?" "Now you live with the consequences of your choices, just like I have to live with mine." I walked away, leaving Chloe standing in the parking lot surrounded by her neighbors and fellow PTA members, all of them staring at her like she'd grown a second head. As I drove home, my phone rang. It was Emma. "Dad? I saw the news. Is it true? Is Mom really going to prison?" "I don't know, sweetheart. That's up to a judge and jury now." "I'm scared, Dad." "I know, but we're going to be okay. It's going to be different and it's going to be hard, but we're going to be okay. Can I come home?" "Of course you can come home. This is your home, Emma. It always will be." When I got back to the house, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, looking around at the empty rooms Jennifer had cleaned out. Tomorrow, I'd start putting my life back together. I'd buy new furniture, maybe paint the walls, turn this place back into a home instead of a crime scene. But tonight, I just sat in the silence, thinking about the past 22 years and all the signs I'd missed. The late nights, the unexplained expenses, the gradual distance that had grown between us. I'd thought it was normal marriage stuff, the kind of slow drift that happens when two people get comfortable with each other. I'd been wrong about a lot of things. My phone buzzed one more time, a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won, but this isn't over. I have friends you don't know about, resources you can't imagine. Watch your back, Jack." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. Jennifer was in federal custody, facing decades in prison. Her threats were just the desperate words of someone who'd finally run out of moves. But as I turned off the lights and headed upstairs to bed, I made a mental note to call Agent Martinez in the morning. Because if 22 years of marriage had taught me anything, it was that I should never underestimate Jennifer's capacity for revenge. The house felt different as I walked through it. Emptier, but also cleaner somehow. Like an infection had been removed, leaving behind healthy tissue that could finally start to heal. Tomorrow, Emma would come home. We'd figure out how to be a family of 2 instead of 3. We'd deal with the media attention, the legal proceedings, the gossip and speculation that would follow us for months. But tonight, for the first time in years, I slept peacefully in my own bed, knowing that the lies were finally over and the truth had won. Even if the truth was uglier than I'd ever imagined.